Wes Craven is undeniably the most iconic horror film director, whose work on films like The Last House on the Left, 1972, The Hills Have Eyes, 1977, A Nightmare on Elm Street, 1982, and Scream franchise, 1996 to 2011, have influenced horror cinema and pop culture for over the last 5 decades. However, The Hills Have Eyes, released in 1977, gave him his initial success as the master of horror he is today. Released as a low-budget, trashy slasher, The Hills Have Eyes was inspired by a Scottish legend called Sawney Bean, which tells the story of a cannibal leader of a clan responsible for hundreds of deaths, and quickly became a critical and commercial success, earning more than $35 million in the box office. Known for its edgy, unfamiliar narrative and dry humor, filled with bloody violence, the film quickly became a cult classic among horror fans. But there's another element of the movie that is popular among the fans: the villains, who, with their brilliant performance, have solidified the movie's popularity even more. So are you interested in learning more about these infamous villains in this movie who might give you a nightmare for life? Before we do so, please subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification button to get updates on our latest videos. Now let's begin. The Cannibals of the Desert. Numerous movie villains in the century-old history of cinema have solidified their brilliant performances in these movies, especially in the horror genre, where the audience loves these terrorizing antagonists who are just so bad that we tend to love them despite their nature. Some iconic horror villains like Freddy Krueger, Jason, Michael Myers, Hannibal Lecter, and Ghostface are just a few names, now considered cultural icons for their masterful portrayal of bloodthirsty baddies. Similarly, The Hills Have Eyes also featured some of the craziest villains, who might not be considered as significant as the other guys. Still, they're a gang of petrifying cannibals who can leave a scar on your heart for a lifetime. Papa Jupiter, the Patriarch. Every horror film needs a terrifying villain who should be scary enough to give you chills to your bones, and in this movie, it's none other than Papa Jupiter. Born to a gas store owner, Fred and his wife are in the middle of a desert. Papa Jupiter was a sadistic and cruel guy since he was young. His meanness started to show in his early childhood, when he started killing his family's livestock for fun. But as he grew older, his madness became so furious that he even killed his own sister to fulfill his sadistic urges. This incident forced his father to beat him up with an iron rod, and he was left in the desert to die. But somehow he survived and lived in the hills with his family, which he started after meeting a prostitute on the road. Mama, his wife, gave birth to 4 deformed children, 3 boys and a girl, who, like his father, are sadistic and cruel. All of his offspring, except the daughter, were born with some deformity, a possible reason being the massive amount of radiation from a nearby Air Force restricted area. They attack passengers using different tactics, all their supplies, and killing them to eat their flesh as meat. At the beginning of the movie, Jupiter's dad, Fred, warns the Carter family not to travel through the road, and warns them about the possible outcomes. But they dismiss his warnings, and later get attacked by Jupiter and his sons, Pluto, Mars, and Mercury, and suffer from their torments. While watching the movie, it's noticeable that his sheer presence is terrifying for his victims and his family, who themselves are terrifying creatures in their own right. In the original film, he not only torments the Carter family by killing Bob Carter, the father of the Carter family, by crucifying him on a tree, but he also kills his own father by beating him to death with a tire iron. He also tries to explode the trailer, but accidentally burns himself, which he surprisingly survives, only to be killed by one of the Carters with a gun.
He's around here.
Mama, the Mother. Though the movie does not feature Mama as a prominent character in the movie, it's evident that she's nothing but a mother monster to her 3 sons, who know nothing but killing strangers and stealing their stuff for survival. Like her husband, Mama was also an authoritarian figure who knew how to keep her children in control. When Fred tells Bob about the people living in the hills, he mentions her as a prostitute, with whom his psychotic son fell in love after he left him on the hills to die. But his son Jupiter survived and found his lady love in the form of Mama, and mated with her to produce monsters, who, like their father, turned out to be sadistic psychopaths. Throughout the movie, she's never seen to attack any of them. She always stays home while the boys hunt for their meals. It's also noticeable that unlike their sons, their daughter Ruby, the unlikely protagonist of the movie, who doesn't take part in all the killings, is tormented by Mama for being the only good one in the family. She often insults her and forces her to join their family venture. In one of the scenes, when Ruby tries to leave the hills, she ropes her outside their den and torments her for her actions. From her reaction toward all the killings, it's noticeable that, much like her family, Mama also lacks human qualities like empathy, social awareness, and the consequences of her brutal actions. Though the makers never show her death, in the end, she's seen being pushed down by her own daughter Ruby down the hill, after which Ruby leaves the place with the captive toddler to save her from her own family. Pluto. The eldest son of Jupiter and Mama was unarguably the most notorious of their three sons. Played by Michael Berryman, this character is unarguably the most famous villain of this movie, for his disfigured morphology, brutal screen presence, and dreadful actions. With his bald head, uncanny facial features and expressions, the distinctive features of actor Berryman, the movie never clarifies the reason behind the deformity. However, it's possible that the dangerous radiation coming from the nearby Air Force Base was behind this rare genetic condition. But his looks are not the only thing that makes him scary. Along with his distinctive scary features, Pluto also inherits sadistic behaviors, a lack of empathy except for his family, and unpredictable moves that make it impossible to track his next movement. At the beginning of the movie, Pluto is seen to be monitoring the Carters with his brother Mercury from the hills, where he calls them their new meal. After that, along with his brothers, Pluto attacks Brenda Carter, daughter of Bob Carter, but his brother Mars pushes him and attacks her. Pluto then finds her niece, Lynn Carter, and her husband Doug's baby, and takes them to their den to eat her meat. But we get to notice his rage when we find his brother Mercury dead after Beast, the family dog, pushes him off the cliff. He takes a vow to kill all the family members and, accompanied by his brother Mars, sets out to attack the family. But before he can do so, Beast bites his leg and leaves him incapacitated, only to be found by his uncle, the Reaper, which is revealed in the second part of the movie. After his survival from death, Jupiter becomes inevitable as a criminal and kills multiple other travelers on the route, when his sister Ruby, who leaves with the Carter family at the end of the first movie, returns to the location 8 years after the events of the first movie with a gang of bikers. Pluto and Reaper strike again to take revenge by killing Ruby, but before he can kill his sister, Beast kills him by pushing him off the hilltop. Mars. Much like his family, Mars was also a deformed man, as a result of a genetic disorder, who along with his family looted and killed many travelers on the road. When the Carter family gets stuck in the middle of the desert, he, along with his brother Pluto, notices them through their binoculars and informs their dad Jupiter about their arrival. Though Mars' presence is shown around the Carter family's trailer, we see him much later in the movie when Pluto enters the trailer to steal food. To distract the family, he sets fire to a crucified Bob and successfully manages to create a distraction from the trailer. When the family ran towards the fire to save Bob, Mars entered the trailer and ate their pet bird alive. Then he fights with his own brother to assault Brenda. After violating Brenda, Mars tries to kidnap the baby, but is interrupted by Lynn and her mother. After struggling to steal the baby for a while, he shoots both of them and gives the baby to Pluto to take the baby home. He also tries to kill Brenda, but fails after he runs out of bullets, and Doug and Bobby save Brenda. After kidnapping the baby, they take her to their house as a substitute grocery item for the following day. After the death of his brother Mercury, he, along with his brother and father, planned to kill the rest of the Carter family. While Pluto and Jupiter try to attack Bobby, Brenda, and Doug, Mars is struck by the Beast. The next day, Mars takes the baby from his sister Ruby and tries to kill her, but to his surprise, Ruby sets him up with a pig and runs away with the baby to save her life. This angers Mars, and he follows Ruby to kill her. On the way, he's attacked by a furious Doug, and they fight violently to the end of each other's lives. But their fight is interrupted by Ruby, who helps Doug by putting a snake around Mars' neck. This gives Doug a chance to kill Mars by stabbing him multiple times in the chest. Mercury. The youngest brother of the three, Mercury was also seen to be born with physical deformities. First, we get to see Mercury when Carter's family takes help from Fred at his gas station. Wearing a weird camouflage outfit, Mercury hides near Fred's station to blast his car. After the Carters leave for their journey, Mercury sets his grandpa's car on fire so that he can't escape from his family. Stationed at the hilltop with binoculars, we never see him throughout the movie until he dies. Being the spy for the family, he gathered all the information and created and developed different strategies for the attacks. Mercury never indulges himself in any death or killing. Even though he never actively took part in the mass killings, it doesn't make him any better. He planned every death with his family members and created every plan to loot the travelers. At the end of the movie, when Mars and Pluto steal the baby, they inform Mercury about the new delicacy through the radio. But as soon as he congratulates his brother, an angry beast attacks him and pushes him off the hilltop, killing him. His death triggers Jupiter, who, with rage, sets out to kill the other family members at once. Ruby. While the whole family suffered from genetic mutation, Ruby, the only daughter of Jupiter and Mama, somehow survived the curse and turned out to be beautiful. She also did not inherit the psychotic brain of the family, and instead seemed to be an empathetic young girl. When she appears in the film's first scene, we get to see her talking to her Grandpa Fred, to whom she asks for help to escape the life she's been forced to live. But Grandpa Fred breaks her spirit by telling her that even though she can't escape her situation, she denies any help. When Carter's family enters the gas store, Fred asks her to hide inside the house, but she escapes from his place and returns to her family on the hill. Then we get to see her again when her mother tries to tie her up outside their house and forces her to feed on Beauty, one of the Carter family dogs whom Mars killed at the beginning of the film. The reason behind this was Ruby's disinterest in taking part in their family business of killing and looting innocent travelers. Unlike other members of the family, Ruby sympathizes with the Carters and asks her family to spare them. Later, when Mars and Pluto kidnap the baby after killing and assaulting the Carter women, Ruby takes the baby from Pluto's hand and latches herself to the baby to protect her from the rest of the family. The next day, when Mars asks Ruby for the baby, she tricks him by giving him a piglet instead of the baby and runs away from the house. After realizing Ruby's trick, Mars starts searching for her all over the hills. Ruby then finds Doug and asks him to run away from the place after giving him his baby. When Mars attacks them from behind, Ruby protects the baby by hiding under a rock. And when Doug is about to lose the fight with Mars, she picks up a snake and puts it around Mars' neck to distract him, which gives Doug a chance to kill him. She's one of the two central characters, the other one being Pluto, who appears in the series' second installment again as a protagonist. The movie is set 8 years after the events in this film, and shows Ruby living with Bobby in the city using the pseudonym Rachel, and driving bikes around the country with her biker gang. After all these years, Ruby, now Rachel, ends up in the same old desert for a bike competition. This once again turns her life upside down when she finds out that her brother Pluto had survived his fate after his uncle, the Reaper, saved him from dying, and they want to avenge the death of their family by killing Ruby. However, Ruby fights fiercely and fully with her family to save her friends from dying. During one of the fights with her uncle, the Reaper, she accidentally hits her head on a rock and loses her senses. The film never declares her dead, and the plot is left open for the audience according to their interpretation, though many believe that she either survived as she did in the first movie, or she died on the spot and her body was eaten by her mother Mama, who hated her the most during her lifetime. The Reaper. With the second The Hills Have Eyes release, the Reaper character came to the silver screen. Described as the older brother of Papa Jupiter, the Reaper is taller, more muscular, and deadlier than his younger brother. Though his presence was never mentioned in the film's first installment, this character makes his debut in the series as the antagonist. When Ruby helps the surviving Carters kill her own sinister family, they take her with them and help her shape a new identity for herself. But due to fate, she ends up in the same desert she once left for good. But to her surprise, her non-existent Uncle Reaper helped heal his brother Pluto, and they still loot strangers in the desert. When she and her biker friends reach the desert, the Reaper and Pluto recreate similar bloody events by killing many of the gang members. They stalk all the bikers and kill them one by one like they did before. After killing many teenagers, when Pluto meets his estranged sister, Ruby nearly survives the incident. But later, Reaper pushes her onto a stone. She hits her head and probably dies on the spot. After their death, Ruby and her friends kill him by burning with fire in a mandap. Marvelous verdict. Along with the lead actors, story, cinematography, direction, and the eeriness of these movies, the one thing that makes them scary to the audience is none other than the iconic villain. Their mere scene presence is considered terrifying. Remember Anthony Hopkins' brilliant portrayal of Hannibal Lecter, or Jack Nicholson's Jack Torrance? The characters have been defined as iconic for their brilliant performances. In the case of The Hills Have Eyes, the cannibal family is the prime example of bringing family values. Though the children of Papa Jupiter and Mama were born with bodily deformities, as a part of a genetic mutation in their father's DNA, the thing that turned them into cold-blooded murderers was the way their parents brought them up. Both of their parents were menacing individuals who turned them into crazy, psychotic murderers. This is a sharp contrast to the Carter family, where they're a happy family, having fun during their road trip. They're religious, strict, and liberal, with family values that entirely vary from the Hill family. Whatever the reason, The Hills Have Eyes is now considered a cult classic for its significant cultural presence over multiple movies. The shaky camera angles, raw footage, and unhinged story make it a great horror movie. Though director Wes Craven himself directed the second movie in the original series, the film failed to gain much appreciation among filmgoers. Again, in 2006, a new reboot of the film was released in the theater. It also failed to gain any significance at the box office. So what do you think of today's video? Let us know in the comments section, and like and subscribe to the channel for more amazing content. Stay scared!